Good morning. We will begin our service with the ringing of the temple bell. At this time, please silence your cell phones and listen quietly as the sounding of the kancho is an invitation to settle our hearts and minds as we prepare to receive the Dharma. Thank you.
Namandam, 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 namandam.
Good morning and welcome to Konohonganji's Military Remembrance Service, sponsored by Boy Scout Troop 59. I am Taikobi Okamura, and I will serve as your MC. Today, we honor the brave members of our community who have paid the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. They fought to preserve the values of our democracy, and for that, we owe them deep and boundless gratitude. Assisting Reverend Blayne at the temple with technical support are Wendy Torada and Darren Katayama. Corinne Chong is our organist. Let us start the service by all rising for the Vandana and Tisarana led by Reverend Blayne. Please sing both the Pali and English parts together with him. Those of you on Zoom, be sure to have your muted. Be sure to have your muted. Be sure you have your muted your mics.
Namanda, Butsunamanda, 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 Butsunamanda.
Please remain standing for an aspiration which will be shared by Reverend Blayne.
Please join me in Gasho. We gather this morning as friends in the Dharma, as fellow travelers along the journey of life. We come together in fellowship to remember our local heroes and honor all who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. We reflect on the values of service, sacrifice, and the willingness to bear suffering for the sake of others. We extend our deepest appreciation to these brave heroes for giving of themselves in order to preserve our freedoms and our democracy. As we navigate the challenges of our world today, let us always honor their dedication to our most cherished American values by standing firm against authoritarianism, autocracy, and the erosion of our civil liberties and the rule of law. May we strive to embody the aspiration of Amida Buddha, who, as a bodhisattva, vowed to liberate all beings who live in ignorance and fear by declaring, even if I should be subjected to all kinds of suffering and torment, continuing my practice undeterred, I would endure it and have no regrets. May we always take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows us the way in this life, the Dharma, the way of understanding and love, and the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Entrusting the dynamic working of all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion, we call the name of Amida, the Buddha of infinite light and life, in gratitude, joy, and awareness. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu.
Please be seated. It is now time to remember the names on the roll of honor. Scoutmaster Mr. Joey Guzman will call each honored name. We ask you to honor them in your hearts by bowing your heads in prayer and grateful reflection.
From World War II, Shigeo Ashikawa, Toshio Fujii, Kameo Fujitani, Mitsuo Furuuchi, George Ikeda, Shiro Ikeno, Tsuyoshi Iwamoto, Chitoshi Kadooka, Kiyoshi Masunaga, Goro Matsuda, Kyuichi Matsumoto, Akira Morihara, Iwao Nakamura, Muneo Oku, Pernell Torrijos, Hisayuki Yano, and Yonezo Yonemura. From the Korean War, Raymond Haili, Isamu Izu, Hiroshi Miyazono, Koichi Moriwaki, Clifford Okinaga, and Nobuji Yamagata. From the Vietnam War, Rodney Fukunaga, Joseph Ga'a Jr., Wayne Hedeman, Aaron K. Hervez, Steve F. Johnson, Momi Kane, John Kauhaihao, James K. Lindsay, Harold L. Lanis, John R. Peacock, Keith Puhi, Glenn Shibata, William A. Ulmer, and Rodney Yano. And from NASA, Ellison Onizuka.
It is now time for the offering of incense. First, we invite all family members of the Roll of Honor, followed by the representatives of various veterans organizations who are present today. Lastly, we invite all Sangha members in attendance. Please use both incense burners. Let's begin with the offering of incense with the roll of honor family members. Actually, just sit down. Just go sit down. May we now ask all the representatives of the various veterans organizations to come forward and offer incense. Now all Sangha members, if you have not done so yet, please come forward to offer incense, starting with the front rows and moving towards the back. Let us now observe a moment of silent meditation.
Namandam, 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 namandam.
Reverend Blayne will lead us in the chanting of the sutra, Hymn in the Paradise of the Buddha, found on page 12 in the red service book and on the screen. Again, page 12 in the red service book. Huh? Oh, 112. Wait, what was I saying? Oh,
The Buddha of infinite light and life made vows to embrace all beings equally without exception. These vows promise to create a perfect world where no suffering or evil exists and guides us to supreme awakening. The Sambutsige, or hymn in praise of Buddha, is a poem from the larger Pure Land Sutra in which Amida Buddha, as a bodhisattva, praises his teacher and makes his 48 vows to establish the Pure Land of enlightenment for the happiness and the welfare of all beings. We chant the words of the Buddha as a reminder of these great vows made to awaken us all. The hymn in praise of Buddha. Your face shines in great splendor, boundless, wondrous dignity, such the greatness of your light, beyond all comparison. Brightness of the sun and moon, and the shining Mani jewels, when compared to your brilliance, seem to us like blackest ink. Tathagata's countenance transcends all comparison. The great voice of awakening resounds through the 10 quarters. Your precepts, learning, effort, meditation, wisdom are virtues beyond all compare, ultimate, supreme, and rare. Your deep meditation has fathomed all the Dharma sea to the limits and the depths of all things the Buddhas teach. Ignorance, anger, and greed The world-honored one has none, like a lion among men, measureless your great virtue. Vast are your great virtuous deeds, wisdom deep and so sublime. Your radiant luminous light shakes all the world's foundations. When I become a Buddha, equal to the Dharma King, I will transcend birth and death, liberating all beings. My giving disciplined mind, precepts, patience, and effort, meditation and wisdom shall be supreme, unsurpassed. I will attain Buddhahood, everywhere fulfill my vow, bringing to all those in fear great peace and tranquility. Though there are myriad Buddhas, beyond measure, beyond count, and great sages numberless, like the grains of Ganges sands, I will honor each of them, equally accepting none. Even more importantly, I will seek the supreme way, even though all Buddha worlds are countless as Ganges sands, even though all lands and realms are boundless without measure. Yet my light shall reach them all, and illumine every place. Such shall be my perfect work, such my power infinite. When I attain Buddhahood, my land will be first and best, place of practice transcendent, its people sublime and rare, land equal to nirvana, beyond all comparison. With pity for everyone, I will carry all across, all who come from 10 quarters, to be born into my land, to attain pure joyful mind, peace and great tranquility. Be my witness, Buddha, please, confirm my sincerity. Now that I have made my vows, I will strive to fulfill them. Buddhas of the 10 quarters, with your wisdom unhindered, may all of these honored ones know my deepest intention, even though my body must bear great pain and suffering. I will persevere and strive patiently without regret. Naman, naman, naman. virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namannabu, 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 namandab, 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 namandab.
Please rise for the Gatha, homeward I go, on the handouts and on the screen. Please be seated. Reverend Blayne will now deliver the Dharma message.
Namandabuts, 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 namandabuts. Good morning, everybody. Aloha. So today we honor all who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. In Buddhist tradition, we strive to embody the spirit of a bodhisattva, an enlightened being who sacrifices their own awakening for the sake of others. This is the highest ideal of how we should live, not only for our sake, but for the sake of everyone, because true compassion is universal and all-inclusive. This morning we chanted the Sambutsuge, or hymn in praise of Buddha, because it summarizes the aspiration of Dharmakara Bodhisattva to become Amida Buddha and work for the enlightenment of all beings, resolving even in the midst of suffering to endure and to never turn back until the goal is attained. We chant these verses from the larger Pure Land Sutra, one of our three main scriptures in Jodo Shinshu, as a reminder of Amida Buddha's great vows of compassion made to awaken and to liberate us all. As I reflect on the names listed on our roll of honor, which hangs in our columbarium in the back, I can't help but think of them as bodhisattvas who sacrificed all for the sake of others. I came across Goro Matsuda's name in the book American Sutra, A Story of Faith and Freedom in the Second World War by Duncan Williams. In it, he shares how his mother, Haru Matsuda, was well known for her creative folk songs and wrote a song about Goro's death on the battlefields of Italy in 1944. And Duncan Williams says, Haru Matsuda was well known in the Japanese American community in Kona, Hawaii, for her original and creative songwriting in the folk song style popular in her native Yamaguchi prefecture. One song she wrote, however, called Gunka, a war song, was dedicated but decidedly different from her usual compositions. Its highly personal lyrics were about the death of her son, Goro, also known by his American name, Carl. Haru, like so many other women during World War II, became a Gold Star mother, someone who had lost a child in uniform. As the song laments, thousands of miles away from home, under the far-off bright red sunset of Italy, my beloved child is buried under stone. Even though he rushed ahead of everyone to charge the enemy, to say he was a brave soldier is too sad. Oh, how fierce the fighting must have been. His fellow soldier suddenly fell. Carl ran over, for he could not leave his friend. Though the strict military rule prohibits acts without orders, Carl went over to encourage him, to hold him, to bandage him in the midst of the battlefield. It was then that Carl was shot, and there he fell. Finally, you have come back to us loving parents who have waited and waited for your return to your homeland, Hawaii. You have come back guided by the compassionate hands of America. You have come back silently. You have come back silently. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. After being informed of Goro's death in combat in Italy, the Matsuda family received a package from the army containing his blood-stained uniform. His sister was shocked by it. I remember my mother opening the package, and I was there too. The whole living room was filled up with the smell of old blood from the stained uniform. He was shot. I don't understand why it was sent home to us. Months later, his ashes came back, and after that, we held a memorial service. In the intervening period between the initial news of his death and the eventual return of his cremated remains, the Gold Star Mother composed a song based on Buddhist folk song rhythms. She made references to being guided in both life and death by Amida Buddha's compassionate hands, but place Buddha's hands with the hands of America. And Reverend Tatsuo Muneto, a former resident minister here, also chronicles Goro's death and Mrs. Matsuda's insightful poetry in this book, Dharma Treasures, Spiritual Insights from Hawaii-Shin Buddhist Pioneers. And he shares one poem by Mrs. Matsuda about the death of Goro. And she says, being asked by my remaining children whether I feel lonely, I say, I'm just fine, as teardrops appear. Mrs. Matsuda captures both the heartbreak and profound faith in her beautiful words, illuminating the experience of so many mothers during the war. How many here are veterans? Thank you for your service. While in the military, you were issued dog tags, which included personal information, including identifying a religious preference. What options did you have to choose from? Was your religious preference recognized? Did you know that those who served in World War II didn't have the option of identifying themselves as Buddhist? Because the military at the time only permitted P for Protestant, C for Catholic, H for Hebrew or Jewish, and blank for no religious affiliation. According to Duncan Williams, many members of the 100th and 442nd had their first encounter with the Army's prejudice against their Buddhist faith when they registered for their dog tags. In Hawaii, one volunteer reporting to draft board number 7, was asked, "What is your nationality?" But when he replied, "Japanese," the person in charge of processing his dog tags corrected him. He learned that the Army's classification for us was Mongolian. When asked, "What is your religion?" he answered, "Buddhist," a response that also prompted a correction. The newly inducted soldier was informed that the Army's classification for us would be Protestant. So all during my time in the Army, I was a Mongolian Protestant. When another young Buddhist asked that his dog tags be marked Buddhist, a scornful officer said, "Let me tell you that we don't have the Buddhist religion in the American Army. Pick another one." I then chose Protestant, and when the officer asked me why I selected Protestant, I said, "Because I protest." The angry officer then assigned him to latrine duty. Despite repeated requests for recognition and for Buddhist chaplains to care for the members of the 442nd and 100th Battalion, a vast majority of whom were Buddhist, all requests were denied, and all the chaplains were Christian. Can you imagine not having your religion recognized and not being provided the appropriate spiritual care based on your religious beliefs? Can you imagine not being afforded the proper funerary rites of your own religion? Well, this was the reality for the thousands of the Japanese American Buddhist soldiers who fought and died for this country. This unjust policy highlighted how being a Japanese American Buddhist was somehow un-American and deserving of fear, suspicion, and the stripping of constitutional rights. Duncan Williams describes, in the Hawaiian Islands, however, such public acknowledgement of the sacrifices of the Nisei soldiers, 400 of the 506 Hawaii-born Nisei killed in action during the war were Buddhist, was one of the main avenues for reviving Buddhism. Since 63% of the Hawaii-born soldiers who died in combat were of Japanese heritage, the military government felt compelled to loosen its ban on Buddhist gatherings at temples. This temple, like all the other temples in the state and across the country, were closed forcibly. Our ministers were rounded up and put in concentration camps. One Nisei recalled that he attended memorial services at the Hongaji Temple almost every Sunday for many of the local boys who were killed in action. And it took numerous appeals to the military government to gain general permission for such gatherings at Buddhist temples. He describes a young Nisei of the Paia Buddhist Church's Women's Association, Maui, sent a letter to authorities and requesting the ability to conduct regular services once a month for those boys who have died in action, and also prayers for boys who are fighting on the front. She asked permission to officiate the services herself. This highlights the fortitude, the power of the women who remained behind, who kept these temples running. And noted that all Buddhist priests of the sect on the island of Maui had been interred. And despite promising, responses from the officials, ultimately denied. So many Buddhist families were forced to hold services at Christian churches instead. When one Nisei who came from a very devout Soto Zen Buddhist family was killed in action, serving with the 442, his sister recalled, "It was the saddest moment when one day 2 military officers knocked on our door and informed Okasan, our mother, that your son was killed in action on July 14, 1944. As there were no Buddhist ministers available, a Christian service was held, and he was interred at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific at Punchbowl." And so there are countless stories that Duncan Williams recounts in this book of families being denied the right to mourn their loved ones in the appropriate manner, of people not being afforded the decency and the respect that they have earned by their government. He shares one story of how a few cases where Buddhist services were able to be held. One such case was on the Big Island. Some families were able to hold Buddhist services for their lost soldiers at the Naolepu Honganji. Shigeo Kikuchi, the wife of the interned Reverend Shikyoku Kikuchi, was implored by families whose son was killed in action in Italy to conduct a Buddhist service in his honor. Having agreed to do so, Kikuchi was joined by Reverend Ernest Hunt. Just yesterday, we had a wonderful seminar with Trinidad Hunt, the granddaughter of Ernest Hunt, who happened to be visiting the Big Island from Honolulu that moment. This unusual situation led to a sanctioned Buddhist funerary service with even military officials in attendance. And so, right, the military service and sacrifice of roughly 33,000 Japanese American men and women of the armed forces during World War II improved how they were treated in the years after the war. And so Duncan Williams chronicled here that throughout the war, the Japanese American Buddhist soldiers were never afforded the opportunity to be identified as Buddhist on their dog tags until after the war. That in 1948, various groups across the country worked together to designate and to have that option available to soldiers serving in our armed forces. In addition, even one of the, I think, our junior YBA, our YBA in Hawaii, the Hawaii Federation of YBA, he says, also helped to successfully have the military symbolically recognize Buddhism at military cemeteries by placing the Dharma wheel, the Dharma chakra, on tombstones of fallen Buddhist soldiers. A section at the Punchbowl Cemetery in Hawaii was designated to honor Buddhist veterans of World War II. 8 Bodhi trees, symbolizing the Eightfold Noble Path, and the tree under which the Buddha attained enlightenment were planted there. One of my personal heroes was the late Reverend Yoshiaki Fujitani, the former bishop who was a member of the Military Intelligence Service during World War II, and who was a local boy, joined up, served during World War II, and he came home, and he never forgot his brothers in arms who never made it back. And he spent his life serving this community, advocating for civil rights, advocating for the betterment of our society. And Bishop Fujitani's family, after his passing, asked me if I wanted this kesa, which belonged to him. And every time I wear this, I am reminded of Reverend Fujitani. I'm reminded of his sacrifice. I'm reminded of his dedication to improving life for every one of us, and how he was guided by the Buddha's teachings. And so today we take time to remember and to honor those heroes. Each moment of our lives, we are creating the conditions for the future. Our actions in the present moment matters and profoundly affects our future, our collective future. How do we want to be remembered by future generations? This is a moment to reflect on our values as a nation and to repay our indebtedness to these fallen heroes by striving to embody our highest ideals as a nation that embraces all and uplifts all who struggle and yearn for a better life. The Nisei soldiers fought and died for a country who denied their religious freedom and who unjustly imprisoned their families in concentration camps on the basis of their skin color and religious beliefs. Yet through it all, these bodhisattvas persevered without regret, liberating others and transforming our world. Today, Our country is at a crossroads, and we are doomed to repeat these same mistakes unless we heed the lessons of the past and stand against injustice, xenophobia, religious bigotry, and the weakening of our democracy. We are far from perfect, but we can build a more perfect union every single day. This potential is the promise of America. And this promise is what these heroes we honor today gave their lives for. May we always honor their sacrifice by aspiring to do better and to be better, just like how we strive to embody Amida Buddha's great vow of compassion and universal liberation for the sake of all beings. Thank you again for being here this morning. Please join me in Gasho to recite the Nembutsu. Entrusting the dynamic working of infinite light and life, we call Amida's honored name in gratitude, joy, and awareness. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu.
Thank you, Reverend Blayne. Scout Tate Bosky will now lead us in the unison reading of the Shinsu Pledge, which can be found on the handouts in the back of the pews and on the screen. Please recite the words out loud together with him.
I take my refuge in the vow of the Buddha. Recite. Live this life with sincerity. I will. Okay. I will put effort in the work. Self-reflection. Gratitude.
Thank you, Scout Tate. We will now have the offertory presentation. Mahalo for your generous contributions, everyone. Please rise as we will conclude this service with the singing of the Gatha. Namo Amida Butsu. Nembutsu. Whoops.
Namandav, 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 Namandav.
Please be seated. This concludes today's military remembrance service. Let us not forget those who gave their lives so that every day we can gratefully continue to live this precious life of freedom. Here are some announcements. Upcoming schedules of service, events, and reminders. Next Sunday, June 9th, we will celebrate Father's Day at the 10 a.m. service. Guest speaker will be Dr. Warren Tamamoto, Hawaii Kyodan President. Saturday, June 15th, please join us at the exciting Obon Festival, which is the kickoff to the 2024 Obon season. The event will be held at the Makaeo Pavilion at the old airport from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. There will be food trucks, craft booths, games for the kids, taiko performances, and of course, Bon Odori dancing. So come on down and have a great time. There will be no service on Sunday, June 16, because many of us will be in recovery mode from the Obon Festival held the night before. Regular Dharma family services will be held on Sundays, June 23 and 30. Reminders: be sure to open, read, and click on the attachments and interesting links that were included with Reverend Blayne's weekly Friday update email. Please check out the puzzle exchange in the library if you are a puzzle enthusiast. Please consider renewing or becoming a sustaining member of the Konohonganji for 2024. An invitation letter and pledge form are attached to Reverend Blayne's email. Mahalo. Are there any other announcements, Reverend Blayne or anybody else?
Oh, just one correction to the services. June 30th, we won't be having services as regularly scheduled. We have an exciting concert, benefit concert with the Makaha Sons and Kenny T here in the social hall on June 30th at 5 p.m. So we're canceling service that morning because we got to prepare for that. Information, tickets are on sale from tomorrow at the temple office, so please call. Tickets are $45 pre-sale, $55 at the door. Yeah, join us for our South Kona Summer Jam with the Makasans and Kenny T. And also, again, just a big mahalo to all the veterans groups and to all the families of those we remember today for joining us. Your presence here is special, and we honor your service and your sacrifice. I also want to acknowledge that this month is also Pride Month, and we as a faith community are taught to welcome all to the Sangha equally, because each of us is embraced without exception by boundless compassion. And so all who seek refuge, all who come here can find a home and bring their authentic selves, just as you are. This is what Amida teaches us. This is what this temple stands for, is inclusivity and welcome for everyone. Again, it's a reminder for us, how do we offer welcome? How do we offer a space for people to be who they are and to affirm everyone in their uniqueness? So that is the vow of Amida Buddha, to embrace, never to abandon. So again, mahalo for joining us and for being part of this Sangha.
Those of you on Zoom, you may leave at any time. Those of you here in person, refreshments will be served in the social hall. Mahalo to the families of Boy Scout Troop 59 for preparing today's refreshments. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please stay healthy and safe, and we hope to see you at future services.
Great job, Ty Kobe, as MC. And thank you, Scouts.